All right, let's get right into it. We're talking about MrBeast. You know him, right? Biggest YouTuber in the world, famous for giving away just mountains of cash. But a really deep investigation by a team of on-chain analysts at Look Advisory suggests that there might be a whole other side to his financial world, one that's playing out in the wild west of crypto markets.
And this is the number that sits right at the heart of this whole thing. $23 million. I mean, that is a staggering amount of money, even for a guy who gives away cars and houses for a living.
So what does that number even mean? Well, according to this report, that's the total amount of money that they allege MrBeast and a whole network of his associates managed to pull out from more than 15 different crypto projects. And right there, you've got a serious conflict that we really need to unpack.
I mean, think about it. On one hand, you have this massive public image of a philanthropist, a genuine good guy. But on the other, you've got these incredibly detailed allegations that he used that massive influence for, well, huge private gain in one of the riskiest markets on the planet. Let's dig into the evidence they presented.
So before we can even get to what happened, we have to understand how. How did these investigators even begin to piece all of this together? Well, it all starts with mapping out digital wallets on the blockchain.
And this is the big question, isn't it? We hear it all the time. Crypto is anonymous, it's untraceable, it's a digital black box. But that's not exactly true. You see, the blockchain is a public ledger. Every single transaction is recorded out in the open for anyone to see. That's what on-chain means. So if you know where to look, you can absolutely follow the money.
And this really breaks down their whole process. The investigators, they started with public breadcrumbs. Something like MrBeast tweeting about buying a CryptoPunk NFT. Okay, so now they have a known wallet. From there, they just trace where the money came from and where it went. They're looking for patterns, and specifically for a hub, like a central train station, that lots of other wallets were using. And that's what allowed them to link this whole cluster of addresses together. So here was the smoking gun. The report alleges that dozens of different crypto wallets, all involved in these shady projects, were consistently sending their profits to the exact same deposit address at the Gemini crypto exchange. Think about it. That's like 20 different people all sending their paychecks to a single bank account. You'd start to think they're connected, right? Well, that's the key they claim unlocked this whole network.
Okay, so now that we see how they tracked it, let's look at what they actually found. And according to the report, this wasn't just a one-time thing. Oh no, they identified a clear, repeatable pattern of behavior that played out across multiple crypto projects, adding up to millions and millions of dollars. Let's start with the biggest case study in the report, a project called SuperVerse. Now, the report alleges this wasn't just some passive investment. This thing was heavily promoted by a bunch of big influencers, which, as you can imagine, created a ton of hype in the market.
Now, this timeline is where the story gets really, really interesting. The report says that back on February 22nd, 2021, a main wallet got 1 million of these pre-sale tokens. That means they got in super early and super cheap, way before the general public. Then, for the next 8 months, those tokens were methodically sold off through a bunch of different side wallets. And guess what happened right after they finished selling? The token's value completely crashed, leaving a lot of regular investors holding worthless bags.
And the financials here? They are just jaw-dropping. The report points to evidence that suggests an initial investment of about 100 grand. The alleged profit from that? Over $11 million. That's a return of more than 11,000%. Just unreal.
But the report doesn't stop there. The second major case study they highlight, Ethernity Chain, apparently followed a very, very similar playbook. It really reinforces this idea of a repeatable pattern.
So, on the one hand, you have the public promotion. MrBeast's brand was featured all over the Ethernity Chain website, and that gives it this massive stamp of credibility. But on the other hand, the on-chain analysis claims to have traced over $4.6 million in net profit from selling ERN tokens, all funneled and sold through 3 different but linked wallets. And this is where the investigation really widens its scope. The report starts to suggest that this wasn't just about one person. It was potentially a whole network of big-name influencers who just happened to show up in the same projects time and time again.
As they dug through the data, the on-chain analysts just kept finding wallets they associated with other major influencers. Guys like KSI, Alex Becker, and Lazarbeam, all involved in the exact same crypto projects, often around the exact same times.
And this slide just illustrates that point perfectly. The investigation brings up a project called Refinable as a specific example. They note that wallets allegedly belonging to both MrBeast and KSI received and then sold their tokens in this strikingly similar pattern. So the report basically argues, hey, this looks a lot more like coordination than just simple coincidence.
So let's bring it all together. Let's look at the top-line numbers that this whole investigation came up with. The final tally is, well, it's pretty staggering.
First, let's talk about the number of crypto wallets. The report claims that they successfully linked over 50, that's 50, distinct wallets into a single interconnected network.
Next, the projects themselves. This alleged pattern of activity, it wasn't just isolated to one or two coins. Nope. The investigation identified involvement across more than 15 different crypto projects.
And that brings us right back to that huge number we started with. All told, the report alleges that this network extracted more than $23 million from the followers and retail investors, the very people who bought into these projects.
So at the end of the day, what are we left with? This report from Look Advisory paints an incredibly detailed, on-chain picture of what they allege is a massive insider operation. And it leaves us with a really fundamental question for our digital age. In these super speculative markets, when an influencer's credibility is the ultimate currency, who is the one that really pays the price?